last year, but because of how both my job was, I'm pretty sure how your job is like trying to get a easy like 1 or 2 like like literally like a quick hour just to recap of like, hey, this is what I've been doing for the past like year or so, or this is what I've been doing for the past like 6 months or something like that.
Yeah.
So one in the time I spoke to her, she's become a viral star. So if you have heard the name, yes, if you have heard the name, you know why. But we'll talk about that later. But first, we'll talk about that later. But first, I want to talk about her cosplaying, because her, like, when we last spoke, is like her cosplaying was like I want to say her cosplaying was like in the middle of getting to where she is right now, which is like expertly crafted. Like beforehand, it's like she had a lot of great ideas, but now like over 2021, like she like hit the ground running, and it just like the moment January hit. Yeah.
Lots of trial and error between then and now. And I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form, but I've learned some things over the past year and a half. Has it been? Time is weird.
I just say from the last time we spoke, so
yeah,
which I feel like was last year, but in this retrospect, I'll just say last year. So
yeah, sounds good.
I'm still thinking it's 2021, but it's 2022. But it still feels like
barely 2022.
Yeah, it's barely 2022 yet.
Barely.
We won't hit 2022 until like the next thing like really hits. It's like it's January plus. It's like last year when WandaVision came out, it's like this was like the gift of what happened. It was like the gift of the gift of what happened that was 2020, and like compressed into Wanda Maximoff's like emotions into that show. And then by the time Falcon and the Winter Soldier, or like I use like Disney Plus shows, because that's how I kind of see the year. Because that's how I see the year, because it's odd because 2021 kind of like started off like in a very slow spot, and like I like beforehand, aside from my show, when I started that year, the year previously, I wasn't really working in my field, so I was still working in customer service, which is a nightmare to say the least.
Yeah.
And of course, we both work the same field, but you kind of like work in a theater. I was actually working like on the front lines of customer service.
Unfortunately, it's a lot of people who have never worked a customer service job don't know how taxing it can be, and you can always tell the people who have never worked in customer service, because it's the people who are jerks to people in customer service.
Oh yeah. And of course, because of what was happening with the theater industry, I had a lack of theater. Like I had theater stuff to my name, but I didn't have like enough theater experience to say, oh yeah, we might need you for an usher job or front of house position. So I kind of like, because of my experience, is like just go into customer service. So I ended essentially a 3-month seasonal job, and then went straight into food service, which is a nightmare.
Yeah.
That's
the source of a lot of depression.
Yes,
is food service.
Yes. And I will say this though, when you are working food service, they do pay you nicely. So that's a good drawback. You might be getting $15 an hour, $16 an hour, free food sometimes, but
or you can be a waiter like I was in the past, and you're basically living less than that, and you're having to live off whatever tips you get. So some days you can make bank, some days you cry yourself to sleep.
Oh yeah, because like later in the year I got to work at IHOP, and IHOP is like different sort of handling altogether. And I was talking to some of my waiter coworkers, and they were like, yeah, it's definitely tough to be a waiter there, because when sometimes when you are making bank, it's fair, and then sometimes just be getting like maybe not a lot, and then there'll be like days where you'd be like, oh, I'm getting a lot of money today because people enjoy me. So,
Yeah,
but then
you're making a living based on other people's generosity, and
yeah,
not everyone has the same ideas of what that generosity looks like.
I mean,
And yeah, some people, especially people from other countries, I mean, living in New York, you get tourists from all over. So European countries, waiters are paid a fair wage, so they don't work off the tipping system. So a lot of tourists will come and they don't know about the tipping system, and it sucks because part of me is like, well, they don't know, but also there goes my rent.
yes, it's sort of like the same thing where we're in the theater industry. It's like similar to the same thing where it's like I have a primary experience as both an usher and also as a stagehand. So stagehand stuff, or behind the scenes stuff, I can't really limitate about that, because we're behind the scenes, making sure the actors aren't making less and all that stuff, making sure that the show's running and thing.
Yeah.
But when we're doing it in front of house as an usher, that's definitely a much more taxing experience, because you're not only
Yeah.
making sure people coming into the show, like literally making like previously, the only time I did actually get stuff like that when I was working at Today Ticks, and Today Ticks, we had to stand outside and give people their tickets, and every so often they were like people, and this is every like 99% of the time it was literally us handing the tickets, and they said, there you go, here's your ticket, go inside, all that stuff. But there's that 1% where there was that nice couple, that nice old man, or the nice nice couple, nice old man, who gives me like maybe a $5-10 and like, here you go, kid.
Oh, that's sweet.
And it was even nicer when it was like happening like maybe 95 degrees outside, and like, here you go, kid, or maybe even like 30 degrees outside, like what it is right now. So I'm like, so that was like nice to hear. But I could understand, it's like when you're kind of like, and at least with your job, like, my best friend and you happen to work in the same position of like the same thing. So I'm like, and she's always talking about how rough it is to work in a position like that. But at least you and my best friend, shout out to Yate, by the way, or
Hi, Yating. She's my buddy that I can talk about The Witcher with.
Yeah.
We both just finished watching the second season. We're like, I just finished it. What'd you think of this? What'd you think of Yennefer? She's awesome.
I have yet to actually watch The Witcher 2, because I'm actually in the
Oh,
middle
it's
of
so good.
I'm in the middle of watching Cobra Kai, because I just got into Cobra Kai.
Nice.
Because I grew up watching Karate Kid, and when I heard Cobra Kai was coming in the thing, I was like, oh, it's a YouTube show, and then it got onto Netflix. I'm like, oh, I'll give it a time when I got like a minute, and then I got the movies. So I'd be like, what, I'm gonna rewatch the movies and then go right into Cobra Kai, because he was like, well, I even watch the next Karate Kid, even though that probably won't ever come up to the thing unless Hilary Swank decides to come on the show. I'm like, what, I'll still watch the next Karate Kid, because it's still got Mr. Miyagi. It still carries the notion of the Karate Kid teachings and stuff like that too. And sure enough, I'm just like, I'm in the middle of season 4 already. Yeah, season 4 of Cobra Kai. I'm like, oh my god! I'm like, this is the type of show I want to be watching every single time it drops. It's like I had the same notion of like the Disney Plus shows, which I'll get into in a couple of seconds. But
yeah,
when the Mandalorian, I sort of had, and I was like, I tried, like, it didn't have like the same reach to me. The Book of Boba Fett has the same reach to me. It's like once Wednesday hits, I'm like, I'm there. Like Hawkeye, I'm there.
Yep. I haven't watched the second episode of Boba Fett, so
I have
no
yet to either.
no spoilers.
Yes. Like Hawkeye, I was already there. Marvel's What
Yeah.
If, I was there. Uh, but
Loki.
the low key, I was like waiting until like the last episode to really watch, because I was like watching it as it
Okay.
happened. I was like watching it in spurts. I was like 2 episodes and then 2 episodes, and then the last 2 episodes, I was like the same thing with Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It was like, and then WandaVision. It was like I wanted to get everything like that's like in compressed compared to where it was like for What If. I was like, you know what? I want to watch What If weekly when it comes out. Same thing with Hawkeye, and now with Boba Fett. It's like these are the type of shows that actually gravitate towards me rather than it's. I think I'm basically saying I'd rather watch the underutilized character get their own chance to shine rather than the more mainstream character that gets their own like TV show.
Gotcha.
But Marvel's What If was actually a pretty fun show, as was Hawkeye, and as is Boba Fett too. So
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of the Disney Plus shows, I mentioned that before you hit 2021, like that you hit the ground running with your cosplaying.
Mhm.
So from when we last spoke to in around like August, September to like January-ish, like how like what sparked your notion of okay, 2021 was gonna be my cosplaying year? Because like you just posted a video like this on I think either TikTok or Instagram or both, of how it was like like I think it was your TikTok, because you were doing like a duet thing where it was like you were just showing like the type of things that you wanted to
Like
do.
the January,
Yeah.
February, March. Yeah.
So what hit your ground running into cosplaying the moment it hit 2021? There we go.
To be honest, it was turning a certain age, which I did in October. I turned 30, which is so fun. See Bo Burnham for my feelings on 30. Um but it was one of those things where at the beginning of the year, okay, it was like, this is a big year personally, and I want to really tackle some dream projects. It was one of those like things to do before I turn 30
Yeah.
kind of deals. Some of them I accomplished, some of them are on my list for this year. Um, but I had found this passion for cosplay and sewing that I had been cosplaying for about 7 years, but in 2020, that's when I finally took it upon myself to start learning to sew. And as I did project after project, I learned more and more and more about the craft. And I still have a lot
Yeah.
to learn. There's still so much I don't know. Um, but I decided, like, hey, I have these skills now. It's now or never. For a few of the projects, it was how long am I going to wait to say, like, oh, I need to learn this first, or I maybe when I get better at this, I'll do it. And I had to sit myself down and be like, how long are you going to wait? You've
Yeah.
waited on a lot of stuff in your life, and you're still waiting on a lot of stuff in your life. So let's take that initiative and make it the year.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing where it's like I want to do more writing and I want to like do a screenplay. So I'm currently trying to do a screenplay as of right now of a remake or reboot or reimagining or what have you of The Creature from the Black Lagoon, and
Nice.
sort of like modernize it into, I wouldn't say of this 2020 like the 2020s, but just modernize it to a point where it feels like, okay, it actually feels like the movies have happened in the past, but this feels like a new creature, and this feels like a new Gilman for the more modern age, where it's just like, oh, the messages of and themes are still there, but it's still like carrying into that weight of like of people going into 2020. And
Yeah.
but yeah, like I'm like right now for 2022, I'm in the same boat where it's just like I want to see if I could try to be a screenwriter because I've always had that niche of like trying to write, and every single time I try to write a screenplay or write something like that, like write a couple of pages, and I'm like, okay, I'm just done, and just like delete the file and just like put it into a recycled page. But
Yeah.
now and now I actually did two things where it's like now for 2022 I had this notion of like doing a daily writing post, which I'll probably do after when we finish talking to this, like
Yeah.
after recording, which is basically I'll write down like a page of my thoughts or a page, because I posted on Medium, and Medium doesn't have like a page limit. It's kind of like you just write as how many words you want, and that kind of counts as a page. So, and write down my thoughts of what I want for a daily writing thing, and then hopefully for 365 days of this whole year, I'd be like, okay, this is page 6 or day 6 of all this stuff. And hopefully by the end of this year, I would have had written essentially 365 days worth of pages or days. I'm just glad this isn't a leap year. So I'd be like, so I'd be like,
It.
yes, but would I even still write the leap year day? I'm like, oh, so today's a leap year. I mean, today's a leap day. What do I write about leap day? But I joke, but yeah, it's like you have this idea, and then you hit this ground running. And like 2 years ago, I had the idea of performing the arts as a podcast or doing a podcast, and because of COVID and everything else, shutting down everything, that's why I hit the ground running with this podcast. So it's like now it's like I'm doing this for 2 years later, and I'm still like you said before, there's still like things to figure out of, okay, what, as a podcaster, what do I need to do? What is the strengths and weaknesses of my podcast? What do I not need to do? Which is sort of like what I'm doing now, which is essentially keep on running and talking, and not letting, I guess, talk. So, but yeah, it's I definitely do agree. Like once a new year hits and you have that New Year's resolution of, hey, I have this idea, I need to start hitting the ground running. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And especially with these past few years and with just the climate of everything, it's also one of those things where we have to remind ourselves we're never promised tomorrow.
Yeah.
So it's might be a good time to do the things you said you were gonna do.
Yeah. Especially how crazy like I know it feels like more than a couple of years ago now, but especially how not 2020, but like how crazy 2019 was going into 2020. Because
Yeah.
I feel like 2019 was a little crazy, and then 2020 hit, and then we just like erupted into like a mass chaos of something happening, and then 2021 hit, and like, okay, we were sort of like almost like a collective consciousness of, okay, we had a crazy bender last night, let's not do that again. And then everyone was sort of like, okay, agreed. And then someone decided to do another bender towards the end of the year, and now we're kind of like in that same boat again. So it's sort of like,
Yeah.
and again, as an actor, I want to go back on stage. I want to go back and be in those rooms and just
Yep.
be and like being in that like notion of and all that stuff. But then we hear about Omicron or Omicron or wherever the hell it's called, and just
Yeah.
how shows are now like either canceling their performances for the week or switching out swing actors or swing actresses or stand-ins and whatnot. And
Mhm.
it's odd because I've only seen a performance where the standby had to go into the thing because I was ushering that day, and
Yeah.
the main actress had like a laryngitis earlier that day, so her voice couldn't really reach out and touch the crowd. So the stand-in, why am I saying stand-in? the understudy, there we go. Why am I saying standby? The understudy had to come in and basically save that part of the show. And then
Yeah.
later on in the day, the actress felt better, and she was able to carry on whatever voice problems she had. But you could tell that
Yeah.
she had like still a problem with the laryngitis now. But now it's like, all the it got to a point where I just read an article just not yesterday where I think it was either Wicked on tour or it was either Wicked on Broadway where they actually had to call someone who actually performed the role of
Like
yeah
years ago, and
yeah
she had stepped away from acting.
yeah.
Like she was in a new career, and they're like, "Hey, can you come in and play Elphaba?"
And I'm like, okay,
It's amazing. And my friend went to see the Phantom of the Opera the other night, and we're both big fans of Phantom. So we,
naturally.
yeah, uh, we. I don't do it as much as I did when I was back in college, but we used to keep up with like who's in the cast. If there was a cast change, everyone would get really excited. And he went to see it the other day, and it was all either understudies or standbys or alternates who
Yeah.
were on as Phantom, Christine, Raoul, like all of the principals were understudies. And I know there's been a lot of talk within the theater community, especially with some comments made by some people in high positions of
Mhm.
certain equities. But it really goes to show just the talent and the dedication and the passion of people who are understudies, swings, alternates. They're the real superheroes of the industry because they have to learn so many tracks and they have to go on in a second's notice.
Yeah.
And it makes me really sad sometimes when I see people who are going to these shows and you're like, oh, the understudies on, I don't want to see it now, I want a refund. Sometimes, there are times where the understudies might be stronger than the
Oh yeah.
lead, or and that's all a matter of opinion.
Perspective. Yeah.
Yeah, but just because someone is listed as an understudy or a swing doesn't negate their talent. It doesn't mean that they are more or less talented than someone who is a lead or in the ensemble.
Yeah.
So yeah, shout out to all the understudies and swings out there because
We
they're
need you
awesome.
more than ever,
Yes.
really.
Yep.
And
Yep. The industry is really showing that now.
yeah, it's like, oh, it's up because like 2 years ago, it was all about first responders and stuff like that. Now, I mean, now the theater industry is sort of like, okay, understudies, alternate standbys, swings. Okay, it's your time to shine because now it's like literally all these people who are getting stricken down with either COVID or Omicron or Delta. When 2021 hit, you like sort of like yeah, you sort of like start posting more on your TikTok account and you hit the ground running. Like that's why I said you hit the ground running with your like cosplaying stuff like that too. What was the type of reactions you got when you started doing your uh yeah, hey, this is what my Beauty of the Beast type of like I'll just I wouldn't say lip sync, but I'll just like whatever that thing is when you do like a scene in front of the thing, you're sort of like lip syncing the scene, but you're not
Yeah.
like
I mean, I don't even know what I'm doing at this point. I'm just like, hey, this is fun. I'm gonna do it. But there's a sort of lip syncing. There's an acting element to it, but it's really just me keeping myself entertained
yeah,
and trying to have some flow of creativity in this drought of me being on stage or in a theater
yeah,
setting. Besides, like the ticketing side of things.
yeah,
Um, when and I literally started when it was I think March or April of 2020 when I started TikTok,
yeah,
and it was just again, a way for me to occupy myself and have an outlet for creativity, because I was stuck at home with my parents for during quarantine. I had to fly there for some very personal reasons,
Yeah.
but then I got all the flights got canceled, so I was stuck there for a few months, and it was a nice time spending that time with my family. So sort of a blessing in disguise. So I had seen it. People had asked, "Hey, do you have a TikTok?" I'd be like, "Nah, it doesn't seem like my thing."
Eh.
And then I got bored and I gave in. And I had been watching to see like what the range of content that there was, especially in the cosplay community. And you would see people with like all these lighting setups and these backdrops, and just it's amazing the quality of content that people can create on a cell phone.
Oh yeah.
And it blows my mind every day. So I started off because I was stuck at home. I didn't have a ring light. I didn't have backdrops. So I stacked up like a frame and I threw a blanket on it in order to in order to have some sort of a backdrop. And then I stacked my phone on like a pile of books and boxes to hold it in place where I could do like, hey, I'm gonna listen to the song or do this scene. And I had a lot of fun with it. It didn't get much traction, but I realized I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And the more I enjoyed it, be like, okay, if this is what I can create with this limited amount of space and resources, maybe I can invest in a ring light. And then that went into, okay, maybe I can take this this uh, wardrobe, not even a wardrobe, like a clothing rack, and throw a curtain on it, and that can be a backdrop. And just slowly and surely, I started to be like, well, maybe I do want to invest in updating and upgrading my content. The more my platform grew, and the more I started getting ideas, be like, well, I want to do this. I want to do this sort of editing, or I want to, have this sort of background that would go with the costume that I'm making.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, it's been a slow, and even now for the content that I personally create, it's been a slow progress.
Yeah.
And I honestly didn't think I would be where I am. I'm not a top creator. I'm not a there. I'm not like, I don't consider myself a very popular TikToker except for that one instance.
Which we'll talk
Um,
about later, but yeah.
yeah. um, but it's fun to go back and see, like, I started with this and this is where the obsession has gotten to now. But
Yeah.
it like I said, it's a source of creativity for me while
Yeah.
I've been stuck at home and with no other outlets per se to pursue that creativity with. So I've been enjoying it.
Yeah. It's funny because it's like the last time we were last spoke, it was like, I have it was like, I have a TikTok, and like you kind of like you joked about it, and
Now I actually am one.
yeah, and then it was like I was like, I remember either saying, "Oh, well, I will probably TikTok later in the like I will probably never TikTok or like give TikTok a chance." And then, sure enough, a year later, is like one of my friends was like, "Hey, maybe to in order to grow your show, create a TikTok account, just start posting your clips from your show and stuff like that too." And sure enough,
Yeah.
and sure enough, when I've done that, I've done like maybe 500, 600 views per video, like per clip of that. So there is
Mhm.
like a niche audience of people on TikTok willing to watch like your stuff, and
Yeah.
you know, especially in the cosplay community where it's like, I only follow maybe a couple of cosplay. I wouldn't say like cosplayers per se, but they do like their own original work. So it's
Yeah.
sort of like OC cosplay, or
Yes.
if that's the term.
Yes, that is a term. It's really big, especially in the D&D community, which I've
Yeah.
found myself to be not a big part of, but I'm in sort of the D&D cosplay. I say this as I have just posted a Critical Role cosplay today. But there is a huge platform for people not cosplaying a well-known character or a character that already exists in the ether, but this character that people will create themselves, be like, hey, I came up with a character who she's a pirate
Yes.
or something like that. And it's amazing to see what people come up with. And the stories, it's all a form of storytelling, really. And I think that's what I've started really enjoying about not only D&D, but about OC cosplays and cosplay in general. It's a form of storytelling.
Yeah.
Um,
I forgot her name, but there's a great original cosplayer who does a queen sort of like theme, and it's like, oh, it's like she's
she's
the
blonde.
yeah.
Yes, I
You
know.
know,
I know exactly who you're talking about. I
and
forget
I was,
her username, but her content is so much fun to watch.
because I discovered her doing a riff on the Emperor's New Groove, and this was like maybe a few months ago, and she was doing like I think it was like one of those TikTok things where it has like music in the background, where it goes into a song, and then it suddenly switches the song lyrics into like a line from the thing, and she kind of like
Yeah.
does it, and she does it in a way that she actually mirrors how the character would be speaking, so it's like very animated.
Yeah, she has a very animated expressions that
Yeah,
it really draws you in, and it's so much
yeah.
fun to watch.
And I've been watching her account since now. I was like, okay, this is the type of stuff I need to watch if I'm on TikTok, rather than just people trying to do the latest things or to do the latest craze. And Gatting has also said that the SCP Foundation is a great source of like lore and stuff like that too. And sure enough, I found a lot of great SCP cosplayers or original characters on there, who does a lot of like interactions of like, say, oh, they're just doing duetting of like, say, some weird thing someone decided to record. It's like, okay, one of the entities escaped in the lab, we gotta get it's going, like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's a great TikTok account called Site42 where he just essentially describes a lot of the stuff about what SCP is, what entities are, what is classes and stuff like that too. The same thing with Dr. Blue and others. And I'm just like, a lot of these TikTok accounts like really, really do show a great care and I'm supposed to say frustration, a great care and well,
It
there is
can be frustrating.
yes,
It really can be.
a great care into their cosplaying or original characters, and just go, okay, maybe in a few months, maybe if I really feel up to it, maybe I'll try and do my own
Yeah.
Doom stuff. I like Doom stuff. My own sort of like of course I can't do Dune, because Dune is like, you gotta be more. Dune is an art form, I will say. Dune is like a little art form.
Dune is a whole thing.
Yeah.
It is a thing.
I don't want to be like, I want to be like Sting coming out of the like the spray thing and looking like that. Or I was like, okay, but like, one, if I do want to do Dune, what character I want to do, and two, how many people are doing that character, and three, where can I find good clips of that person speaking so I could actually look like I'm actually doing the same thing, because it's like,
I haven't seen many Dune cosplayers. Even when the movie was coming out, there were a few of people who were building like the suits that Timothy Chalamet and the Jessica, I forgot her name, the one who plays Mother, the suits that they wear where they're out in the desert, and they're
oh, okay.
amazing builds. but I haven't seen much of a platform for Dune, so maybe you could start it. You can start Dune Talk.
But yeah, I was trying to say not necessarily Dune, but at least something that has in sort of like a small background or at least a small gathering, and then sort of like build my base from that up from there and somehow create my own little characters and stuff like that too. Because and in the
Yeah.
meantime, just like speak outer characters and not somehow always be filming from my bed and doing something like that too. Because for some reason, if you do go to my the TikTok account that I do have, 99% of the time is like Lily, me in my bed, and I'm just like I should literally just change my bio to says I'm not usually on the bed. I'm not usually on my bed. Hopefully, or something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's amazing how TikTok has essentially been a great foundation to others creating their own like creating their own creations and stuff like that too, or people
Yeah.
expressing their own creativity into their own sort of thing, especially as a cosplayer.
Yeah. And sharing their passions too. Like if you're like me and your FYP is just all Encanto, just seeing how many people love that movie, which it's a fantastic movie, and I have not been able to get We Don't Talk About Bruno out of my head for a month.
I still have yet to watch that actually.
Oh, it's so good. It really is good. But just the amount of people either cosplaying characters from Encanto, sharing like art that they've made or headcanons. It's just a nice community, and especially with Encanto, it really highlights representation, especially in the cosplay community. Like, oh, it's not just a bunch of white cosplayers. Like, look at all these like Latin cosplayers. It's so good. It's so good to see just the community. And the community's not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but it's growing. I think I talked last time about the whole idea of cosplay is for everyone, and it still is.
Yeah.
But I've seen more and more as my platform has grown that there are still people who don't consider that. Because I am a plus size cosplayer, and I have, there have been some videos where I think like, oh, I love this costume. I think I look amazing. And I've gotten comments on my WandaVision stuff. Someone said, that's not Wanda, that's Whopper. Or on a Belle cosplay, someone commented about like, oh, what a heifer. And, you get comments like that, and you get the people who don't realize what the point of cosplay is.
Yeah.
That it's a way for people to, express their passions and their creativity without boundaries.
Yeah.
You can be plus sized and cosplay whatever character you want. If you're, you don't have to be white to cosplay like a certain character that you might love. There are caveats, like if you're not from a certain cultural background, you probably shouldn't be cosplaying.
Yeah.
Like especially if that is historically, if that culture has anyways, it's hard for me to speak on that because there are so many other especially POC cosplayers who can speak more eloquently of that, and I highly encourage people to go look up these cosplayers. Our Shield Maiden is a great advocate. Just look them up. They have such a good voice in the cosplay community about representation in cosplay, and so there's still a ways to go, but we're getting there.
It's definitely a rough traction to like the same thing as being an actor, where it's just like you're gonna have bad reviews of all that, Mr. Davis was on stage and he hammed it up like a cold he handed up like a cold like turkey on a winter's day or something like that, and you're like, that doesn't sound right, and it kind of like puts you
No.
you put your it essentially does like despiritizes your idea of like wanting to do this more, and then like, okay, maybe not do something like that, and then like a few days later, people are like, where are you? It's like, what happened to you? And then they're like, oh, I mean, I'm still around. It's just that I just haven't really been creatively,
Yeah.
But yeah, people always try and knock you down, but it's always best, just to get back
Yeah.
up. Just
And
like,
people can be really brave on the internet
oh yeah,
when they shouldn't be. Um yeah, but there is also like you have those people, but then there's also you really get into the community and you make friends and you have people who do support you and who have your back and are so supportive, and people that you can go to be like, hey, I'm having trouble doing this sort of stitch, or how do you size up a pattern, how do you do like this and this, and people are so kind to share their knowledge and really try to make cosplay not so much of a competitive market. There
yeah,
are cosplay competitions, and I've taken part in a few. They're a lot of fun,
yeah,
but it's also about sharing your creativity and helping out those who are getting started, who are still learning, and just being encouraging about what people love. Like, we don't, as cosplayers, unless it is an OC character like you were talking about, we
yeah,
don't own these characters. No one owns Wanda. No one owns uh whatever cosplay you and another person are doing. It doesn't matter if someone made their costume head to toe, boots and all. Doesn't matter if the other person bought their cosplay. That's not the point. It's not a competition. It's about having fun and having that freedom to share your passions.
yeah. And unless you want to look for characters, you could try and do, you could always do like public domain characters and like
Yeah.
essentially work with public domain characters, because one, if there's a public domain character, that really means you could actually cosplay as
And you
this
could,
and
yeah.
not worry about any royalties like that. It's like, hey, I have an idea of like doing
Yeah.
the Tin Man from the Wizards of Oz, but it's not like the Tin Man you think of the movies, like the Tin Man
Yeah.
actually from the book, and you kind of like create like a little minute or two video of like a thought process of what the Tin Woods Man, or Nick Chopper, or wherever Nick Chopper, I think he's called in the
Yeah.
book, and just
And
like and create like
yeah.
like a little mini video, and then suddenly say, oh, people will like this idea, keep on going with it. But
Yeah. And I've done that with characters like I love the character of Mina Harker from Dracula. So I've done my own version of Mina Harker. I think I've done Elizabeth from Frankenstein in a way for Halloween one year. But there's also a big book talk community of people who not only do cosplays from adaptations of books, but who read the books and do their own interpretations of a character um that they have read. I've this past year I've gotten really into the Grishaverse fandom from the not only the Shadow and Bone Netflix series, but the books that inspired it. Because
okay.
there's a whole lore about it. I may or may not have Grishaverse stickers on my water bottle as we speak. But one character that I love in those series, she's in the TV show, but it's Nina Zenik. She's part of the Six of Crows duology from the books, and they've kind of like mixed the crows in with the Shadow and Bone series. They all are set in the same universe, but the show kind of mixed their stories together, which is going to be really interesting to see how they do in season 2.
Because
But what I love about Nina is that canonically in the books, she is a plus size character.
hmm,
So it is wonderful to see people doing interpretations of not only Nina from the show, but taking Nina from the books and doing their own versions of like, oh, this is something I think Nina would wear. I've gotten comments of people saying like, that's not what Nina would wear. Like, be like, well, this is what I interpreted Nina
It's,
to
I mean,
be.
maybe
Yeah.
if you actually read the books and see actually, do that, but it's like, and then actually do the whole, and that's
Yeah.
just sort of like the same, and that's sort of like the same thing I've seen a lot of backlash where it's just like there is a fandom community, and I won't point names or point fingers at some of these fandom communities, but sometimes these fandom communities will take offense to new ideas, or rather ideas that have been in canon or yeah, canon for the past, like, say 20 or 30 years, and people think it's like, oh, it's just the creators trying to like destroy everything, when in actuality it has happened in the past. And it's
Yeah.
just like, it's like just them actually using like actual inspiration from like the books or comics or what have you, and just like
Yeah.
going from there. But I
And
won't.
that's on gatekeeping.
Yes. I won't name names to what fandom that is, but
I mean, that's every fandom, to be
yeah,
honest. Like every fandom has gatekeepers, whether if it's Grishaverse, if it's Star Wars, Marvel, Critical Role, they're all there.
and it got to a point where I actually tweeted about that a few nights ago, and and it's like, because I was talking about how, okay, I'll just say what fandom it is, but it's the DCEU fandom of how Zack Snyder was right, and they want to keep their little pocket of, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, the whole DCEU Snyderverse thing.
that's
That's a landmine
you
of
know
a
of a,
fandom.
and I only tweeted like maybe one thing, saying, because have you people not even read the comics? Because this is what happens. Like, this is the comics. And I was like, yeah, probably be passed into like a ship in the night. And sure enough, I get like 3 likes, one notification of someone who does an eye roll, or like I get a notification of an eye roll,
Oh,
and someone quote tweeting me going, take a look at this guy. I'm just like, you know what? Next time when I do want to take about the Snyderverse or something like that, I'm just not gonna say anything. But I'm
yeah.
just like, but
And
then
it's always the ones that like the tweets or the videos or the content that you think are going to get swept under the rug that are the ones that get the most traction. Because I don't
yeah,
know, I've been on TikTok for a few years. I still don't understand the algorithm. I'll post one video, I'll be like, okay, here's this popular character. Here's this costume that I made for this character. Here's my process, and I'm so proud of it. Maybe a couple hundred views.
yeah,
Here's a 5-second video of me talking about the attractiveness of this one character. 100,000. It just I know there's an importance of like following trends on TikTok, using popular sounds and hashtags and
yeah,
talking about uh things that are trending at the time.
I,
So that can be a blow of creativity where you work on a video and you think like, I'm so proud of this, how it's edited, how it's shot, how the costume looks, and then it doesn't go anywhere.
yeah. And it's also the same thing where it's just like on Instagram, I've created what the call time Instagram, like maybe in right before I started a podcast. I mean, not right before I started the podcast, like right before I started airing the podcast. So like in May of June of 2020, I had yet to really hit like maybe over 200 people. I'm still like in that process of, oh, it's still a couple of years old. I'm still learning the process of like the algorithms and stuff like that too. And yeah, I definitely do feel like if you aren't like doing like daily posts or something like that, it doesn't really work. And
Yeah.
I'm just not like the type of person who could do like a daily post like day in, day out, day in, day out, just doing the same thing. And then I see your post, and I'm just like, I'm just amazed to how you're able to essentially find the time to actually post all this stuff and not feel like burnt out.
Oh no, I do. I do feel very burnt out at times, and it all goes into it's great that we have these platforms like TikTok and Instagram to share creativity, to share like-minded passions, but because of these strict algorithms and I'm guilty of this. I'm guilty of falling into this. Our desire to be seen and noticed and to go viral, it takes a detriment on mental health. Especially on those things where I talk about where I will work so hard on a video and then it gets no traction, or I think like, hey, I edited this photo really nicely and no one shares it.
Yeah.
It's one of those times where you have to take a step back, put algorithms aside, put likes and numbers aside, and take a moment to just be proud of, like, hey, it doesn't matter what other people think of this. I'm proud of what I made. I'm I enjoy what I've created, and I have to take a take a step back and remember that, and not let other people's opinions, and this goes for anything in life, to not let other people's opinions and perceptions and reactions to you affect how you feel about yourself.
Oh yeah. And I think we got into a point where I know that your dream projects were actually part of how you got into, I wouldn't say like I was about to say insta famous, like TikTok famous, but your dream projects of Bonnie and the Beast and what your, I think the other one that's in the
Yeah.
background. Yeah. Like what was like the thought process, or yeah, the thought process, the process like that to essentially create those two dream projects? Because I know because I know taking, a few months of your time to essentially stitch and weave and what have you into a whole like a whole new thing, and then be like, okay, this has taken me 2 3 months, possibly 4 months to create, and then there's like, and then do a whole thing that was like, how do I look, or something like that, and just do like a whole, you know whatever you do on TikTok when you reveal something like that. I have no idea how that works, but yeah, what was the process of essentially doing two dream projects, like, or the process of doing two dream projects, like almost like back to back?
So the first one you mentioned was a project which I call Bunny and the Beast. And it's a weird thing. I will even admit what I made was weird in concept, but summer of 2020, I was on Instagram and someone had shared with me a enamel pin, and I bought the pin and it is hanging up. It's behind this blue monstrosity here. Um, but
I like how you say it's a monstrosity.
it is, and I'll get
Okay.
into why this is a
Okay.
monstrosity in a minute. Um, it was an enamel pin where someone had taken the first season, the first season's poster of Outlander, which I am obsessed with, like obsessed with, and mixed it and turned Claire into Belle and Jamie into the human version of the Beast. And it was so weird in concept. And I don't know where the creator got this idea from, but I absolutely loved it because it was so unique and it mixed two of my favorite things together. And it made me think, what if I did this? What if I did something similar, not in the same style, but what if I take two of my favorite things, Outlander and Beauty and the Beast, and mix them together? So I bought a pattern at the beginning of when I started my sewing process of Claire Frazier's wedding dress
Yeah.
from the first season of Outlander. And I thought this would be a cool design to turn into Belle's yellow gown.
Ooh, okay.
Especially since myself included and a lot of other fans were not satisfied with the live action version's yellow dress from the 2017 Beauty and the
Oh,
Beast.
I thought for a moment you were saying not satisfied to something that was on Outlander about having the same or similar dress, and it was like, you know, I'm gonna do.
Oh, no, 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 no,
Oh,
no.
okay, okay.
No, a lot of people had problems with the yellow dress from the one that Emma Watson wore, for reasons which I won't get into because
Yes.
that's a whole other can of worms.
Uh-huh.
So I sketched it out. I'm not an artist like with a pen and crayons. I'm not an artist, but I sketched something out and decided to make that my Halloween project. Back in
Nice.
2020, before I had gotten my job back when I was still on furlough,
Yeah.
uh, it was a way for me to keep from just lying in bed and being, I'm bored, there's nothing to do, I'm stuck inside. So I'd be like, this month I'm going to work on this project, this I'm going to try to do this, even if it was something small. So October, I was like, I'm gonna do this, and I took the entire month to hunt for fabric, get the design right, really focus on learning how to bone a bodice, and do figure out how to do grommets and a laced up back. Uh, and like figuring out what shape it should be, how it should fit my own body
Yeah.
to where I feel beautiful and comfortable in it. And didn't it didn't turn out how I originally planned, especially with the fabric. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm going to get this kind of fabric, this and this. And then when I was shopping, I didn't find what I was looking for, but then I opened my mind and I found things that were even better.
Yeah.
Instead of going for like this a metallic linen all over, like I was trying to keep it as close to what fabrics they used in Outlander, just in different colors to make it to be to be more of a representation of Belle. I found this beautiful yellow, like perfect Belle color brocade fabric. It's really upholstery fabric, but it had the weight that I wanted and the structure I wanted, the design, the color. It was perfect. So I opened my mind up to using that instead. And then Claire's outfit, which Claire's original dress, um, it's gorgeous, and it has these like feathers and thistles on the stomacher, or like the front part of the bodice, and it looks like the feathers fall down to her dress. And I thought, what if
Oh,
I
nice.
took that and turned it into a storytelling piece? Because of Beauty and the Beast and the rose and the petals that fall down, what if instead of feathers and thistles, I do roses and have the rose petals fall down the front of the skirt to
That's
represent the
actually
passing of time? And it was a lot of hard work. I had to learn embroidery, to like hand embroidery in order to make the petals. So it was a big learning process, and I'm so glad I did it because I learned so much working on that dress. Um, and I'm very happy with how it turned out and the reception that I got. I actually, in the summer of 2020, I entered it into a virtual cosplay competition, and I ended up winning best beginner.
Ooh.
And part of the reason why they did appreciate my costume was because not only did I give credit and honor another creator, the person who made the pin, but also I used the piece as a form of storytelling with the roses. So I thought those were some lovely comments that I got. Um, and that led me to say, hey, if I can do this, if I can make that yellow monstrosity, let's work on this blue monstrosity that's behind me. So what this is this is a recreation of we talked about Phantom of the Opera. I'm a huge fan of Phantom of
Oh,
the Opera.
yeah.
It is the show that really cemented my love of theater, musical theater, and Christine Daae has always been my dream role. But as the years have gone by, uh, I realized that playing that role is probably never going to happen for many reasons. So, and that's another reason why I love cosplay is that
Well,
if
never.
they won't cast me, I'm going to cast myself.
Well, honestly, never say never. It's like Ben Platt, who was like he managed to do the dream role of playing dear Evan. I mean, not Evan Hansen, the whoever his character's name is in the role, and he's like close to 30 playing a teenager. So I'm pretty sure he could do the same thing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
But when I was in college and studying musical theater, I have Tumblr posts back in the day of me just like reblogging pictures of different actresses wearing
Oh, Tumblr.
I know, wearing what is called the wishing gown, and it is
Ah,
the dress that Christine wears during the second manager scene and also in Wishing You Were Somehow Here Again, which is why it's called the wishing gown. And each production of Phantom has their own variation of this dress. London, and it's they tried to use the same fabric, or at least the productions that try to stay that are produced by Andrew Lloyd Webber's company, replication productions like Broadway or touring companies. But each dress is different in their own way as far as the trim goes. So I really loved the London version of the wishing gown. So that's what I tried to base this off of. It took about 3 months to make, drafting my own patterns to make the dress and to get it as accurate as possible. It's not perfect at all. Like there are still mistakes, especially with working with velvet, because working with velvet fabric is a nightmare because that stuff is slippery.
oh, yeah.
Velvet fabric is slippery and it's a pain in my butt. Uh, but
Yeah.
I'm still incredibly proud of how it turned out. And I as I was researching different versions of this dress, I went back to my old Tumblr and just seeing how many posts I have done of this dress. And I always used to tell myself that I'm going to wear this dress one day. Like I'm going to be Christine. I'm going to play her on Broadway and I'm going to wear this specific dress. And as I got older, I realized that might not happen as far as like just from a vocal standpoint and a physical standpoint.
Yeah.
I don't know if that dream is ever going to become a reality, but at least now I have the skills to make one part of that dream a reality. And so that's why this was worth the literal blood, sweat, and tears that went into making this costume.
Now, when you have to make a costume like that, do you use like a tablet or do you use your own like actual like drafting papers to actually draft up an idea of okay, this is what the dress should be like, or is it a mixture of two where it's just like I'm going to use a little drafting paper, and then if I really want to really edge out the thing, I'll redesign it on a tablet so I could actually just be like, okay, no, like maybe do like that, so I'd be like, so my drafting paper doesn't look like a mess.
So what I did for this was I have a few like Victorian style patterns. So I started with that. And what you do when you're making a costume and unless you know for certain that this pattern is perfect for my body or this pattern, like I've used it before, it's foolproof. You do what are called mock-ups. Where you'll take like a cheap muslin fabric or a fabric that is close to what the type of fabric that you're working with, but something that you don't mind getting a good amount of and spending that money on, because it is a game of trial and error to where you're just making version after version after version and seeing like, okay, well, this fits, or this is a little loose. This is good here with the way this seam cuts across here, but I don't like the neckline. So for this, I made about 3 or 4 mock-ups of just the bodice.
Oh, wow.
Because I couldn't find anything that was similar to this specific shape of the bodice, of where the velvet pieces differ from the rest of the bodice, of how it's separated and how it attaches. So all of that was, I had to cut out a pattern piece, and say, okay, well, this isn't anywhere close. Take a fabric pen or a pencil and just kind of draw on the fabric. Be like, okay, I kind of want the neckline to go here. I also have to keep in mind about seam allowances, of where like 2 fabric pieces meet, and like where they're sewed together. I have to figure out like how long I want it, how tight I want it to be, how form fitting. So it's a lot of trial and error that you do, usually with sketches. And then once you have a final, what I like to do once I have a final draft of the bodice piece, of after I've made my last mock, I'd be like, yes, this is what I want. I'll take there are various ways that you can do it, but I take the final mock-up pieces, like rip out all the seams and lay it on butcher paper and draw it from there, like trace it, make the notations that I need on the paper, as far as like where pieces need to meet, where I need to, make a seam, or all of the things. And
Yes.
again, I'm saying this, I am not a professional.
No,
I'm no way a professional. I've
even
been sewing for almost a full 2 years.
even my professors who are very professional in their own, like even my professors back in the day in college, who are always like professional in their craft, they're still doing stuff that even they know that that like they're literally still they're still doing this stuff, and then somehow creating a new process, or somehow just creating or learning about a new process, and goes, I've been a teacher for 10, 15 years. I didn't even learn how to do that. So
Yeah.
So,
and even especially when doing cosplay, it's also a lot of just studying the costume that you're making, and seeing like where different seams are, how things are cut. I have a whole album, it just in my phone, of just like
oh
reference
wow,
photos of the dress and like the different productions of it.
that's a lot of photos.
And there was something on here that I got really excited about, because when I was working on this dress, I was worried about the how the dress was going to fit around the bust area. If I had to do like a princess seam that goes from the armhole all the way down, or the pattern that I had started working with was darted, and a dart is a fabric where like you pinch it together and it creates like a cinching almost effect. Again, I don't this is probably not the right terminology. I am not a professional. But I got so excited when I looked closer as I was studying the costume and realized that there were darts. So I didn't have to make cuts that went all the way up, but I could use the darting method. I think I ran around my apartment going, "It's darted! It's darts!" Because I was so excited about that simple seam method.
I just imagine your neighbors going, "Who's yelling? Oh, it's just Lindy just saying something about."
Yeah.
I just imagine your neighbor going, "Who's yelling? Oh, it's Lindy just saying something about." Maybe she took up darting, and it's like she hit a bullseye.
Oh, it's that weird lady who dresses like fictional characters in a room.
Speaking of fictional characters in a room, I guess we should talk about the elephant in the room. That is, how did you meet Brendan Frazier?
Well, how that happened was, so I talked last time on the show about my love for the Mummy, especially
Yeah.
the 1999 version, and I do cosplays of several different outfits of Evie. And the Facebook algorithm knows what kind of a nerd I am and my interests. So this wasn't at a physical Comic Con, but there is a company called Galaxy Con. They
Yeah.
do physical cons, but they also do, or at least they started to during quarantine, was offer like autographs from different celebrities and like people who are famous in the nerd realm, and autographs and also video meet and greets. And I'd seen it advertised, but I never saw one that I was like really interested in or thought it was a good enough. Be like, well, do I want to spend this much on that? I don't know. It was a Friday night, I think. And I was just scrolling on Facebook, and it was advertised for this Galaxy Con meet and greet for Brendan Fraser, who I have admired and loved since 1997, whenever George of the Jungle came out.
97.
And especially in 97, especially with the Mummy and how much that movie means to me. And yeah, I saw it. I was like, when else am I going to have this opportunity to just to chat with Brendan Fraser? So it was a very last minute impulse purchase because the meet and greet was for the next day. I was like, I'm going on a picnic with a friend at this time. They have a time that would be perfect. I'll choose this, and it was done. So the experience was for a 2-minute meet and greet virtually with Brendan Fraser, which 2 minutes doesn't seem like a lot, and even
Yeah.
then, I'm like, can I have more, please? And it was really, and I've spoken highly about this company because it was my first time doing anything like this, especially with GalaxyCon, and I was very impressed of how it was handled. So you're given a link, and at the time of your specific meet and greet, you'll log into the link, and you'll have, there were 2 screens where you'll be and the celebrity will be, and before the celebrity comes on, they'll have a GalaxyCon technician who will come and say hi, tell you about what to expect, and also and test your visual and audio, so you're not just being like 2 minutes of, what, I can't hear you, I can't see you, sorry, bye. Which I was like, that's awesome. I love that they did it. So he came on and we spoke, and I didn't go full cosplay because
Yeah.
whenever I do Evie, I do like the skirt, the belt, and I have a pair of fake bangs that I wear for Evie. I used to have my bangs cut in order to do Evie's bangs, but then I'm like, maybe I shouldn't do bangs anymore. So I bought a pair of fake bangs on Amazon, and they have served me very well as
Yeah.
far as like matching my own hair color. I didn't do the bangs, but I had the shirt and the necktie from her library outfit. And I had the Book of the Dead that I made beside me. And he saw me and immediately he said, Evelyn, the years have been good to you.
Oh,
And I
man.
died. And you take like a photo, and they like screen cap it, and then you get to talk for a few minutes. And when he did the when he did the photo, the man came prepared,
Yes.
because as we're about to take the photo, he holds up a rose, and I died. Like, my heart completely melted. So we spoke. He did a costume change with his hat. It was wonderful. And we talked about, he talked about his projects, and I haven't posted the whole experience or the whole 2 minutes, because I did ask him. I told him, like, the Mummy has meant so much to me. Do you have any special memories? And we talked about that for a little while. So and I don't think I'll ever post that because that the video that I did post has been seen by a lot of people.
Yeah, it
So
has.
part of the experience I kind of want to keep just for myself,
Yeah.
to have be like this was a moment that I shared with this talented person. Um, and so the 2 minutes were up. And what I loved about GalaxyCon is that it wasn't like oh, you had an experience or you're done. Once you were done with the experience, they would email you a link to so where you could download and watch your watch the interaction and download it and watch it however many times you want. So you really did get your money's worth.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, let me just post a little video, be like, oh, I got a meeting Brendan Fraser. And that video really took off. That was the
Yeah.
first one to, I think, get over 1 million views. And it blew up. It was one of those things where I posted it and then I was like, well, I'm already in cosplay, so let me just film some stuff while I'm in it. And I don't look at my notifications while I'm filming. And then I get done filming whatever the heck I was filming. And I went back and checked my notifications. And then I realized how much traction it was getting.
Oh dear.
And people were like, what? How did this happen? How did you meet him? Like, because I had already had a few people following me because I do EV cosplay. But this like got pushed out into the ether, like to everybody's FYP. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I'll post the video of like our a clip of our actual interaction. And then that blew up even further. Like I think as of right now it has 2.6 million views. And then I was like, oh cool, well this blew up. This is cool. And it wasn't until the next day after I posted that video when the articles started coming out. I think the moment I realized that this was a big deal was when Entertainment Weekly covered it. And I used to have, like, back in high school, Entertainment Weekly was my source of like movie news. And I had all the magazines. I think they are still hidden away somewhere. So when Entertainment Weekly wrote an article about it, I was like, oh shoot, I should probably now inform my parents that I have a TikTok and that this is happening. Because I didn't tell my parents at first that I had a TikTok because I didn't want them to think like, oh, well, our almost $30-year-old daughter.
$30.
30-year-old daughter is on the internet dressing up like fictional characters. We're so proud. And they are very supportive. They're very supportive, especially of my sewing, and I love them to death. So I remember calling my mom. It's like, so mom, so I posted something on TikTok and people are writing articles about it. I promise, like, I haven't done anything wrong or scandalous. Like nothing you should be ashamed of, but just so you know, I think this is what they call viral. And then so that's the story of how my parents found out I have a TikTok.
Oh my god.
And it kind of just escalated from there of how it happened. And the company that I did the meet and greet through, they emailed me about like maybe a few weeks later. And when I got the email, I was like, because it was titled like Brendan Fraser or something. I was like, oh no, I'm in trouble. Was I not supposed to post that? I read the rules. It said nothing where I couldn't post it online. And no, they just emailed me like, hey, we love the reaction this has gotten. We're going to send him a screenshot of your conversation and we're going to send it to him for him to autograph.
Oh my
like
god.
No extra charge. They did it out of the goodness of their hearts, and it came, and I now have a photo on over here at the corner near my bookshelf. I just put like I have a couple mummy pops. I put my Book of the Dead
Yeah.
there on display. So I just now have a photo of me talking to Brendan Fraser, and he wrote Lindley, shucks ma'am, and signed it.
Oh my God.
And this is just, and this is why I think that whole thing went viral. I am fully aware it did not go viral because of me. I am not the viral superstar. It's because of Brendan Fraser and just the connection he has with his audience, and just for being a decent human
Oh yeah.
and like a good human. So that's why that video went viral. It has nothing to do with me. And I take no credit for this or for the renaissance that he is going through. That is not because of me or the video I posted. That is because he's a genuinely good person and a very talented person who is getting back out there and getting jobs. That is all on him. That has nothing to do with me.
Oh yeah.
Just putting that out there.
Yeah.
But he went to a convention and someone asked him about fan interactions, and he said, well, I'm not on social media, but I went viral on TikTok and I had this lovely conversation with this woman named Lindley. I learned her name. Someone sent me that clip and I immediately started sobbing.
Yeah. I
Because
mean,
he took the time to actually not learn my screen name, but he learned my actual name. So he's a very nice dude
I
and
know. It's like,
deserves all the love in the world.
yeah, it's like a few years ago when he popped up on Doom Patrol to play Robot Man. I'm like, okay, he's gonna be like I really hoped that, and I'm like saying this as my chair is falling. I was like, I really hope that in the next few years, Brendan Fraser gets his due, and not only that,
Yep.
and just like he just like gets his due, gets his comeback and stuff like that too, and then over the past couple of years, I think it's because of the Mummy becoming like 20 years old and how people love the movie.
Yeah.
And then it's like the nostalgia for the Mummy and realizing how bad the Tom Cruise Mummy is. I mean, it is. I mean, it's.
Woof.
I mean, it is bad, but I will admit, at least they were trying to make a movie. At least trying somewhat.
Yeah. Were they trying to make a movie or were they trying to make a franchise?
Good point. Good point.
And that's the hot take of the day.
But yeah, the idea is that I think it's because of the nostalgia for the Mummy, especially for Brendan Fraser's Mummy, and or maybe just 1999 in general, because there was something about that year where it was just very magical, and it kind of, I mean,
it was a much more innocent.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it's completely free of problems because there were a lot of problems.
Oh yeah.
But I think it was before, especially with our generation, before certain events took place.
Oh yeah.
And we all had to grow up very fast.
Yeah. Especially, especially going into high school as one of those major events happening. And it's like, it's like one of those type of things where it's just like, people always joke about how millennials are just so cynical about anything. Well, if you happen to go through a terrorist attack, a financial depression, and then a election that was so convoluted by 2012 standards, and then you got into 2012 standards of how the world was ending, all that stuff, you will be a cynical son of a bitch too. But
yeah, us millennials are very tired of living through historical events. Can we have a break? I think that's why people are so nostalgic about the 90s, was because there were less historical events happening. I think going back to like the 80s and 90s, there were historical events that happened, but I think we were all more focused on, who shot JR and, when the heck was I going to get a pair of moon shoes? I still never got a pair of moon shoes and I'm upset about it.
It's like in the 80s, there's like, Cabbage Patch stuff, Nintendo, all that stuff. In the 90s, it became like, the OJ trial, and then
Tickle Me Elmo, Beanie Babies.
Pokemon,
Yep.
Nintendo 64 is like,
Yep.
like people were so, and then I think it's because 1999 was also the end of that decade, so a lot of people were just becoming a lot more reminiscent of the same thing, because the new Matrix movie came out and people were coming out in the waves of how the first Matrix movie was so, you know, legendary and all that stuff, and how people were like, you know, gushing about not only, yeah, it's like Keanu Reeves is the same thing, where it's just like Keanu Reeves and Brendan Fraser have like the same sort of similar fan base.
If they are ever in a movie together, the world will explode of goodness and happiness.
Yes.
And can we just get a wholesome comedy with Keanu Reeves and Brendan Fraser? And let me be in it, please. That's all I really ask.
Yeah, it's like for whatever reason, in 1999, a lot of the movies that came out are getting a lot more traction, and it's just like, I think it's just people just wanting to be back in a more simpler time where no one was really worried about a lot of things, and it does help that a lot of the movies that came out during the time were like very good comfort movies. And like, if I put on the Mummy, I'm just barely gotta watch it from beginning to end, because it's like one of those type of movies. And and it's weird because, you know, The Mummy Returns came out 20 years ago, and although I'm not sure if The Mummy Returns still has the biggest love that it is with The Mummy, because it was like, oh, it's like, there's The Mummy, The Mummy Returns, The Scorpion King, Tomb of the Dragon Empire, and then The Mummy 2017 movie, which we don't
see. Part of me doesn't even want to put them in the same canon, but the fact that the Book of Amun-Ra is in the 2017 movie.
Anyway, I know we're kind of like going into a long discussion, but Lindley, thank you for being a great guest again.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, I love having past guests to come back and actually talk about not only their experiences post the podcast, but also just like their new experiences as well. Because, I mean, unless
I was here before it was call time.
I was, yeah, season OG of the actual podcast. So, but yeah, I love learning about not only the process of the cosplaying community, because I feel like within the past, like say, since we actually last spoke, I feel like the cosplaying community has like grown a bit, and it may be because of either quarantine or just lockdown, or just like people in general just like trying to get their thoughts across and just still stay creative, you know. And then as we're going to 2022, as we have already entered 2022.
It's 2022.
I know. We like, people are still trying to keep creative while the world around us just slowly just decides to destroy itself. And I'm not gonna say anything.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I have actors like Brendan Fraser, Keanu Reeves, Tom Hanks, other people like that, just being like all wholesome people or something like that. And then, you know, just keep the ideas of these are just actors, and who would just be like, okay, you know, what's a good movie I haven't watched in a while? Okay, Speed Zone. I might as well just watch Keanu Reeves try and not have a bus blow up before it reaches 55 minutes an hour, and just watch Dennis Hopper just like chew up the scenery, because, you know, it's like, it's just one of those type of things. And then watch Jeff Daniels for some reason not take a moment's notice to jump out of a freaking window before a house blows up. I mean, you have a window that's right next to you. You just jump out, and someone actually does jump out of the window. It's like,
people in movies don't always logic.
Yeah, but I understand.
Not always.
I understand the thought process of going, oh shit, and just having like something just blow up. It's like the same thing with the Green Goblin and in the Spider-Man, at the end of Spider-Man, where he goes,
spoilers.
No, I'm talking about Spider-Man.
Oh, the first one. Oh. Well, it's not a spoiler that they're in. Okay. Anyways, Yeah, the
Hey,
whole
did you know
oh
that Green Goblin is a comic book character that has died over 20 times?
what?
No, but it's like, yeah, sometimes in movies that movies don't have good logic in sometimes, but it's a good way to watch and just like turn your brain off and just
Yeah.
like that. But Lindley, I'm pretty sure your socials are the same as always, or have you like decided to be like, oh, since you're now a big Instagram star or
I've
TikTok?
completely rebranded. No, you can still find me on Instagram at Little Lottie. That's little Lottie. Little Lottie Cosplay on TikTok. I just premiered a new cosplay that I'm super proud of. Imogen from Critical Role for all my Critical
Oh
Role
wow.
critters out there. So that's coming, working on more sewing projects. I also have a cosplay Facebook page, which is Little Lottie Space Cosplay.
And with that, thank you, Lindy, for being a great guest again and great catching up. And I hope to do the same thing, hopefully not in another year and a half. so,
Yes.
so take care, everyone. Please be safe, be well, and until next time.